and welcome to Nerd Church. Usually, this is the place where we read through the Catholic lectionary and discuss what it means and what we can learn from it in light of the insights gained from critical scholarship. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to turn our usual nerdy lens on the realm of American politics, particularly the way that Our Lady of Guadalupe is being deployed right now as American Catholics argue over whether or not to support the Trump administration policies of illegally detaining and torturing and deporting migrants and American citizens. So, to join us today, we have the Dapper Dinosaur. If you would like to introduce yourself, being sure to focus on your distinguished career as a linguist.
Well, first of all, I am in fact not a linguist, as many people know, but few people recognize. But I do have a science communication and primarily a pseudoscience debunking channel. It focuses a lot on young Earth creationism, but not exclusively. I am not Catholic, but I am fairly familiar with Catholicism. I've been to many Catholic masses. I went to a Catholic school. The vast majority of my extended family is Catholic. So I am aware of, Catholic things, if you will. I'm not confused by most of the terms in Catholicism, so that helps. As far as things like the Bible, I know a little bit of Hebrew and Greek, but not terribly much. But I do try to acquaint myself with the work of critical scholars. In fact, I have Kip Davis as a regular guest on my channel. So,
And on this one.
oh yeah, and he's on this one too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yep, that's me.
Okay. I would like to say, though, Dapper, you're a linguist in the same way that I'm a religious studies scholar. You have a lot of training and you're also self-taught to
That's
keep your
fair, yeah.
skills sharp, but it's not what you do to pay the bills.
No, it's definitely not. Although it helps sometimes.
Yes. And you do a lot to educate people about linguistics, which is not nothing.
Yeah, which is very rare. I find that there are not many people who go out there and just, will explain things like, hey, what is definiteness in like a grammatical sense? Whereas my most recent script did that.
Yeah. And I mean, and we also live in an era when some of the best people in the business are getting pushed out of real academic jobs and onto YouTube.
Hmm.
So I think that, there's a lot of us who, you know, flamed out of grad school one way or another, or have just, you know, developed our research skills on our own that, don't need to feel shy about sharing what we know. As Aldo has done, if he'd care to introduce himself.
Sure. Thank you, Katie. Well, as I've said a couple of times, I'm an industrial designer by trade. I used to work in office furniture design, but since I was 15, I started this trip down the rabbit hole of biblical studies. I taught myself Hebrew and Aramaic, and I enjoy studying the Hebrew Bible, the Targums, some Second Temple literature, and rabbinic literature. So I guess I could say I am intellectually curious, a self-taught person. I wouldn't label myself as a scholar, but I do enjoy, trying to delve deeper than the average person.
Okay. And Amanda?
I'm Amanda. I am the resident Protestant. So I'm the what? What is this person? I am not particularly trained in anything biblical other than spending much of my life memorizing and reading the Bible in English. But I'm also in training to be a material science chemist. And I'm mending a pair of pants. That's what I'm doing. If it looks like I'm doing something strange.
Okay. So with that, we will get started. So the incident that I want to talk about today, in particular, to focus on, is an award ceremony that took place in Washington, D.C., in which John Yep of Catholics for Catholics, with the help of Bishop Strickland, gave Tom Homan a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work defending America's, for defending, as they said, 62,000 migrant children. And I had initially thought, oh, I'll just record. The whole thing was streamed on YouTube. I was like, oh, I'll just record it and then, we'll do a response video. And then I got to thinking about it and I realized that we probably need to lay a little bit of groundwork to just respond to that video intelligently so that people who are less familiar with the weird and wild world of right-wing Catholicism will be able to follow what's going on. Because, my friends, there is a lot. And I do have to say also, one of the things that made me realize how much the general public just doesn't know about religion in general and Catholicism in particular was listening to Protestant biblical studies scholars who would be like, like in their houses, like back in, the first century, people would have these little niches and they'd like pray in front of them and make offerings and, have these little household shrines. And I kind of go, oh, yeah, I cannot imagine having that be part of my frame of reference as something that people do.
Yeah, it's pretty common in Christianity broadly, except
Yeah.
for Protestants.
Yes, exactly. And, Protestants.
It looks like idolatry, okay? Like, it's not our fault.
Okay.
I was kidding.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Engraving was involved in the making of those holy cards. So you could say it's a graven image, I guess. But like, look, do you have a picture of your mom?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It is a weird line to draw. Yes, I agree.
Yes. I know. I know you agree. I'm just laying it out there. Okay. So, point being that, and actually that general ignorance is not necessarily just because like people don't care and Protestants suck. It also has to do with the way that the Catholic Church in America developed, where there was a decision made mostly by Irish Catholics, like, keeping it 100, that to kind of tone down on the weird stuff, at least in public. So as a result of that, there's a lot of American Catholicism, especially if, like my family, you're Irish Catholic, that it's like there's a lot of, well, we don't talk about that in public, right? You like, we don't put we don't like have a big Corpus Christi presentation that procession that goes down the street, right? We don't put chalk on our doors for the three things. There's a lot that like just American Catholics just don't do.
In Catholics' defense, there are plenty of Protestants who don't think Catholics are Christians. So they
Well, no.
They view everything with suspicion.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and this is something that we would definitely need to go deeper into at some point if people are interested, because this is something that, to fully understand what's going on, you have to go back to Lord Baltimore and the founding of Maryland as a Catholic colony. And we're not going to go back that far. Don't get scared. We're just dipping a toe in the pool today. But the point is that in the 19th century, like, convents got set on fire. Like, priests in America got lynched. That was a thing that happened. And the response to that by Irish Catholics was basically to, like, become what was to acculturate, to give up a lot of their distinctive culture, or to integrate it into American culture in inoffensive ways. So like not wearing green on St. Patrick's Day became something that got you teased instead of something that could get you a beat down. Because, like, if you were in the 1920s, if you were in an Irish neighborhood and you weren't wearing green on St. Patrick's Day, that meant that you supported the British colonial government and they would just beat your ass. And the German Catholics basically figured out pretty quick that if your last name was Schmidt, everybody just figured you were a Lutheran as long as you kept your mouth shut.
Which, to be fair, in America is a more likely conclusion, since
most
American Protestants don't have strong feelings about the British monarchy and Ireland.
Yeah, to be fair. So basically, the bottom line is that the Catholics, immigrant Catholics in America, went from being essentially white passing to being white. And we're kind of seeing the culmination of that in its very worst manifestations happening right now in the incident that I am going to be unpacking in more detail. Okay, so now you're probably asking yourself, like, okay, this is cool, this is interesting, why do we care? The reason why we care is that about 10% of the US electorate are Catholics who, by their own report, pray daily and who make it to Mass at least once a month. So these are people who are pretty dang serious about their religion. And then there's there's like another 10% that still go to church on Christmas and Easter because they're cultural Catholics whose identity is important to them, even if they aren't actively practicing their faith. So as people are trying to figure out, how to change the current composition of the American government, in terms of getting people elected, and just kind of understanding what's going on in their community and how to make common cause with people in their communities effectively, regardless of what side of this issue you're on. It's useful to know the players and how they think about things. So with that said, I am going to put my Catholic hat on. I'm doing this for two reasons. The first reason is that I want to be transparent with everybody that might be watching this at any point, that I am talking both as a trained scholar and as someone who is within the tradition. The other reason is that when politically or religiously conservative Catholics start getting criticized by people like me, the first thing they do is go, "Oh, you're a cafeteria Catholic. You're not serious about your faith." So this is me.
Wait, cafeteria?
Yeah, cafeteria Catholic is the phrase. It's like basically and of course it's ridiculous because everybody is a cafeteria Catholic. Catholicism is too big to be anything else, right? It's like even if you're really religious, you pick the devotions that speak to you, right? Because like you can get a book of like different prayers that are like this thick and all of them tell you, oh yeah, it's really awesome if you pray these like, like twice a week, right?
So it's like cherry picking.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Okay.
cherry picking, but the thing is that everybody cherry picks.
Well, yeah. I was
and
confused by the term.
yeah, oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, okay, yeah, and see, this is why we have Amanda here, because I would not have thought that the term cafeteria Catholic required explanation.
I feel like if I were Catholic and I were called a cafeteria Catholic, I would just ask, "Hey, how come I didn't see you at Matins yesterday?" Or
Yeah,
or anything like that. You don't go to every single one of the daily prayer services that the local parish doesn't even offer every single day? Weird.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is, like I say, so the mantilla is just
Get in a monastery, you jerk.
Yeah. So, well, and that's kind of what I do, right? It is I'm like, we're both cafeteria Catholics. It's just that I have personal reservations about different parts of Catholic doctrine than you do, and I've never called the Pope a heretic. So, I'm basically staking out my right to be critical of John Yep, who is the head of Catholics for Catholics, which is
which is a hilarious name, by the way.
Oh, it's completely hilarious. Yes, I always want to write it with a 4 because back when American newspapers were a thing, there would be personal ads in the back, and you would have like, men for the number 4 women, women for women, men for men. So Catholics for Catholics sounds like a dating site. And
hold on, let me go set that up. I might be able to make some money.
yeah. So well, yeah, but Catholic Match exists. So
Darn. Mine will be better.
Yeah.
Because of reasons.
Yeah. So anyway.
It'll have way more bots pretending to be women, which I hear is how you get a successful dating site going.
Yeah. Well, so Catholics for Catholics is this basically like low tier Catholic influencer group.
Not even an apostolate.
Yeah, no. And see that's the other thing that's important is that the opposition to okay. I need to back up. Okay. So I was talking about why do we care about this? It's because Catholics have a lot of votes, right? The other part of that is that because of Catholic social teaching, which is basically a set of doctrines that were created largely in the late 19th century by Pope Leo XIII. Like the Catholic position on most economic, social, and political issues is completely schizophrenic by American political in terms of the way that American political parties have divided those issues. So, for example, the Catholic Church is very clear that deliberate abortion is a sin, is a mortal sin. Although they're changing slowly the pastoral care of people who have had abortions, and it's getting better. But I'm not defending entirely the way that people have been treated within the Catholic Church and things that have happened to people because of that issue. Just setting that there. On the other hand, part of, and this was something that Joseph Cardinal Bernardin, who was in Chicago in the last half of the 20th century, called the seamless garment, right? Where it's like, you know, it doesn't matter if the child is born if they die of measles when they're 2. It doesn't matter if the child doesn't die of measles when they're 2 if they aren't educated so that they can find decent work, and so on and so on and so forth. So there's a strong tendency among American Catholics to support a lot of the Democratic Party's policies on, things like, school lunches, welfare programs. There's ideas on the way. So that's where you get politicians like former President Joe Biden, who started out as a anti-abortion Democrat, who found that stance to be increasingly uncomfortable as the Democratic Party's brand became all about defending abortion rights. So basically, we went from the 1960s, where the Catholic Church was sometimes jokingly referred to as the Democratic Party at prayer. I mean, it's not a coincidence that we've had 2 Catholic presidents and they've both been Democrats. It's also not a coincidence that we're pretty soon going to have a third Catholic president, and he's going to be a Republican. Because after 1973, the Catholic Church started making common cause with the Republican Party over abortion, because right-wing evangelical Protestants were looking for a social issue that they could latch onto.
Because they had failed with segregation, which was the previous social issue that they were championing.
Yes, precisely so. And if people are interested in learning more about how that went down, I would strongly suggest going to the Patheos blog channel and tracking down a blog called Slacktivist, which is run by Fred Clark, who is a progressive Christian and got pushed out of being a Baptist because he was not a racist.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And he has this really wonderful essay called it's the moral stance younger than the Happy Meal, in which he explains that the McDonald's Happy Meal, which is like a little like kids meal that comes in a box, was invented in 1979. And it wasn't until a couple years later that the Southern Baptist Convention started condemning elective abortion as being sinful. If you want to find out more about that from the Catholic side, I highly recommend Good Intentions, which is by Stephen P. Miles. um, he really goes deep into what was going on. So this is why the Catholic vote in the U.S. has been gradually creeping towards towards the Republican Party, although not reliably totally. For example, Trump, I have to write down numbers. Okay, for example, Trump got 55% of the total Catholic vote in the US, right?
Yeah, nothing says Catholics should vote for a guy like serial monogamy and cheating and rape.
Yes, it's not great, right? However, he got like 80% of the evangelical Protestant vote, 62% of the overall Protestant vote, and Trump still has 62% popularity among white Protestants. His overall favorable among among Catholics overall is 52%. So that's a 3-point drop in about a year. So that shows that there are elements of the Catholic vote that are persuadable in interesting ways, which is why you have people like John Yep, who is, I think, both trying to kind of make his mark in the power vacuum led by the death of Charlie Kirk, because Yep was actually a friend of Charlie Kirk's and was a is apparently the source of the rumors that Charlie Kirk was on the verge of converting to Catholicism when he left this planet.
Maybe the Catholic Church needs better vetting mechanisms.
Well, okay. Keep in mind that considering that Charlie Kirk's wife was a baptized Catholic, they didn't marry in the Catholic Church, which means that technically their marriage was invalid.
She's Catholic?
Yeah, she was born Catholic. She and Charlie went to an evangelical megachurch. Allegedly, they went to mass every so often. And Charlie,
I guess you can't really vet people when they're in a religion from childhood.
well, yeah, and the thing is, though, is Erica Kirk left, right? She was going with her husband to this evangelical megachurch. But the thing is that because she was Catholic and because she had people in her orbit who were Catholic, then she was basically able to give Charlie some like useful tips, like don't talk shit about the Virgin Mary. Because of course, like evangelical MAGA is populated by the people who don't think that anybody besides white evangelical Protestants are Christian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which would exclude, literally everyone in the Bible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also,
people who hold that position aren't like living in like a rational zone.
No,
that's true.
No, but on the other hand, that is probably one of the reasons why Mitt Romney was never president of the United States.
Oh, 100%. The fact that he was Mormon was like a huge problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Huge problem.
Yeah.
Like there were people who could take a Catholic over, which, is still iffy, but a Mormon, absolutely, absolutely heckin' not.
Yeah.
Well, the theology between Catholicism and Protestantism is less divergent than between Mormonism and Protestantism. So, like, from a
Oh,
theological standpoint, I get why Protestants would be more comfortable with a Catholic president than a Mormon one. But also, I don't know, maybe I'm a weirdo, but I feel like my top concern in voting for president isn't
Yeah.
the degree to which their theology agrees with mine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the bottom line is that, the American Constitution says that there is no religious test for public office. So,
but that's a problem
yeah,
Yeah, but that's the
for lots
that,
of people.
yeah, yeah. And
that doesn't mean that you can't vote according to some religious preference
no,
because
no, no,
you get
no,
to
no.
vote for whomever for whatever reason. All it means
Oh,
ultimately
yeah,
is you can't keep someone off the ballot because of their religious affiliation or lack thereof.
yeah,
But
yeah,
what voters do,
yeah,
who knows?
yeah, that's true. And individual voters can make all kinds of choices. I'm just saying that I personally, as a voter, don't feel comfortable taking someone's religion into account because when I'm voting, I'm thinking about what I want America to be. And I want America to be a place where somebody's religion or lack thereof does not interfere with their ability to function in society.
I would broadly agree, but I feel like if someone was like, "Oh, I'm a devout member of the Church of the Baby Eaters," I'd be like, ooh, I don't know, I don't know, I
Well, I
don't know."
mean,
I think my problem with like every time, not that like,
okay, but what if they said they were the Church of the Baby Eaters, but really that just meant that they ate hard-boiled eggs?
I mean, I would probably look into whatever new religious group that a presidential candidate claimed to be part of. But I'm saying, like, I can
Yeah,
imagine
yeah, 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 yes.
religious affiliations that would make me hesitate.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
Like,
look,
I would
just
be like, "Oh, a Scientologist?
oh,
I don't know."
oh yeah, 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 yeah. Or like the fact that like Tulsi Gabbard is like they talk about her like she's Hindu. No, she grew up in this like really weird like Hare Krishna offshoot cult.
Oh, so an offshoot of the offshoot cult. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah. There's layers. We're getting
whew,
off topic, so I'm
sorry,
trying to, you
sorry
know,
about that.
not discuss. I would be glad to sit down and unpack Tulsi Gabbard's weirdness too.
well,
But
I think with my thing with the politicians and religion is it's often a shorthand for we're the same, so vote for me. And
Yeah.
frankly, you can say that you go to a church and it doesn't mean shit
yeah,
for who
but
you are as a person,
yeah,
what you believe, what you do.
yeah. But on the other hand, I would argue that to the degree that religion functions as a force for good in the world, a lot of that comes from the fact that religion does build connections between people of really diverse backgrounds, and that it's a way of moving people from the outer orbit of acquaintances closer to the level closer to the level of friends or family, at which point you're sort of required to figure out how to build community with these people and how to support each other. And yes, that's something that can be abused and often is abused by grifters like John Yep, but it's also, broadly speaking, the same logic that's being used by the Catholic bishops who are going out to protest in favor of, stopping the illegal kidnapping and torture of migrants, because, at least in part, these are their fellow Catholics. These are the people who sit in their pews. These are the people whose kids are going to their schools. So by foregrounding their Catholic identity rather than their MAGA identity, they're acting in, even people that are very conservative on a lot of social issues that might normally endorse a Republican candidate or who have even said supportive stuff about Trump in the past, are now changing their opinions, in part because the people that Trump is going after are their fellow Catholics, and because they're people in their diocese that they are obligated to take care of, and is having, some really interesting effects. Okay, so I've mentioned the name John Yep a few times, and I'm sure that everyone is going, who the crap is that? Because he is not a prominent figure. He wants to be a prominent figure. He wants it really bad. So that, I think, is why he chose to give this award to Tom Homan. Because he decided that that was probably the best way to kiss up to the Trump administration, was to give Tom Homan this wonderful award about how he was this big hero because he had saved all of these children. I want to add a footnote here. He did not. Basically, what happened was there has been a problem with unaccompanied minors entering the U.S. A lot of them actually have family members who are already in the U.S. that they're being shipped to, and then the kids just kind of disappear into the school system as quickly as they can, or they turn 18 and age out of the system. So, and they just kind of, quit checking in and go under the radar. And because of that, people started going through the records, and the same people who decide, and broadly speaking, decided that, there were people who were 150 years old getting Social Security because they don't understand how computer clocks work. Decided that these kids had obviously were missing, and not just missing, but were probably, living in horrible captivity, having horrible things done to them, probably because a lot of them had been to Jeffrey Epstein's island and just believed that that was a thing that happens all the damn time. And yes, I am getting a little bit spicy about this.
Okay, I'm not going to complain. You're not wrong.
Okay, so now we come back to our eternal question: who is John Yep? Okay, now one more brief aside. Okay, myself and not just me, but a lot of cradle Catholics, which is basically the term of art for people who are Catholic now and were baptized and raised as Catholics, and are currently not practicing any other religion. And there has been a tendency, mostly because a lot of the worst people in the so-called trad-cath world, so essentially people who are fanatic supporters of the pre-Vatican II Latin Mass that was established at the Council of Trent, And a lot of them are Protestants who basically went from being KJV onlyists to TLM onlyists.
Well, you like to live on the extremes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and also I think a lot of the converts, there's a certain number of them who basically like all of the negative stereotypes about American Catholicism, with the exception of pedophilia, are things that they believe and they like. So
I'm
then,
not so sure about that exception with all of them.
well, it's a ephebophilia, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll just say this. One of the most prominent Catholics in the United States right now works for a known pedophile and is currently working for a pedophile protector. So, like, is
Yeah.
he that much of an opposer of, pedophilia? It doesn't seem like it.
Okay. See, and this is where we have to draw an important distinction, right? Okay. There are trad caths who are liturgically conservative and socially and politically conservative. Then there are just Catholics who are socially and politically conservative. These are overlapping groups,
Right. Not
but
the same.
there is space in the Venn diagram. So JD Vance is a conservative Catholic, but he hasn't yet crossed the line into trad.
I like how it's yet, because we all know it's probably coming.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, okay, have you ever seen the like giant plastic funnels and you drop the penny in
Hmm.
and you watch it spin around and around and around and around until finally it gets to the bottom and it kind of goes into this death spiral and it falls down?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the penny has dropped for JD Vance. And at the bottom of the spiral, of course, is the like, point of no return where you're just a schismatic. Okay.
Gonna go full sedevacantist?
Yes, exactly. And you never go full sedevacantist.
Well, I mean, you say that, but people do all the time.
I mean, even Mel Gibson backed off and is now a sedi privationist.
Oh.
I don't know what any of those words mean, but okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. When
I can get a little bit from context.
Okay. Basically, when the Pope dies, right, and before the Pope is selected, that is called the sedi vacanta period, right? Because the chair is empty.
That was sedevacans, but you know what? My Latin isn't that great.
My Latin is not great either.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
I could be mistaken also. But anyway, the point is that period of mourning is where the name comes from, because there are a number of very weird conspiracy theories that I will be glad to go into in another video about how at some point there quit being a legitimate pope and the current pope is merely a usurper.
Yeah, it was in 1059.
Okay, dude.
I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
No, like back in the 60s, they decided that they had really that it was just a personal excommunication on each other.
It definitely didn't seem like that in the 11th century.
No. But like, okay, we had a really messy divorce with the Orthodox, right? And things were said.
And then there was that attempt at reconciliation that fell apart like a month later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was kind of on again. It had been on again and off again for a while before that. We broke up, but now like the we meet for coffee every so often, and like we give each other little gifts at major holidays, and we hang out, and it's good. you know?
Still haven't returned all those artifacts from Venice, though.
Look, they're working on it. They're working on it, okay? You don't you can't come back from this like in 5 years or even 10, right?
Hey, if it helps, I'm also very consistent that the various current, the various former Soviet Orthodox churches, that were part of the Soviet Union as
Yeah,
a state apparatus, should give back all those Eastern Catholic parishes that were handed to them by the Soviet government because they didn't want to have to deal with more than one church at a time. They have not done that. So, like, yeah, hey, give those back to the Catholic Church, Russians,
yeah,
and, Belarusians and whatever else.
yeah. But anyway, um, yeah, but anyway, like I think that Leo really wants to get some kind of like a formal declaration of unity, maybe not full communion, but something in 54. That like I think that he wants to either, like, even if he doesn't live to see it, I think he wants to set that up for his successor.
Good luck to him. I am skeptical that it will happen, but good luck to him.
Okay, so moving along. Okay. So, oh yeah, and a city privationist is just somebody who thinks that there is a pope. So, like, the sacraments still work, and you can still, like, validly ordain bishops and validly ordain priests. But because the pope is a heretic, nobody has to listen to him.
Hmm. I mean, to be fair, he wouldn't be the first heretical pope.
Uh,
Yes. However,
I fail to follow the idea that the Pope can both be
legitimate and
heretical
not
and
legitimate at
pass and exist to consecrate.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that just doesn't make any. That does not. That
So
does not
really,
Yeah.
compute.
that goes all the way back to the Donatist
Yeah.
controversy, and
Okay.
this was like way
Okay.
back in like the fourth
Okay.
century.
That.
Oh, we can't do the Donatist controversy?
Okay. Yeah. Can we put? Well, we can do the
Okay,
Donald
fine.
controversy, but I would rather not do it right now.
I'll just say it for over a millennium, there's been an idea that just because your clergyman is a piece of crap, that doesn't invalidate marriages or baptisms or confessions or communion or any of the other sacraments that guy's performed, because the authority is not based on him being a good guy. It's based on that authority being imputed by the Church Universal and
Uh,
God thereby via God, who has imparted that authority, which is not the same thing as saying that this guy is a good guy. Because you know what? Everyone's a dick.
Yep. Exactly.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay. So but the reason why we got off on this tangent was because I just wanted to say to my fellow cradle Catholics, there's a strong tendency to just be like, to look at the fact that, like, JD Vance and Candace Owens and Amy
Be
Coney.
Catholic?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And Taylor Marshall and a bunch of other people that you only, really know about if you are very Catholic and very online and very focused on the weird corners of the internet, um, are all converts, right? So there's a very strong tendency, which I myself have fallen prey to at times, for cradle Catholics to just go, it's the converts. The
I
converts
mean,
are
yeah.
ruining everything. To the point that some people will be like low key shitty to converts.
I've even fallen into that trap, and I'm not even Catholic.
Right. And the thing is that, as I will illustrate as I'm going through the as I'm describing the people in the presentation, um, nope, I'm sorry, guys, the call is coming from inside the house. Um, so, because everybody that I am talking about right now is a baptized Catholic who was baptized as an infant. Most of them appear to have gone to 12 years of Catholic school, at least.
I only did 4.
Yeah. And and they, can their bona fides are as good as anybody else's. And if you're keeping score, there is a persistent family. And if we're keeping score on who's more cradle Catholic than thou, my family has a tradition that our first Christian ancestor was baptized by the very hands of St. Patrick himself.
Oh.
Which actually might even be true.
Can't say it's definitely not true, so you never know.
It's hard to prove either way.
Well, I mean, we know that my ancestor at the time was working for like one of the kings of Ireland when Patrick was running around baptizing people.
And getting them to celebrate Easter on a date that wasn't the same one as Rome.
Yeah, what's up with that? See, Irish Catholics making life difficult by not wanting to listen to the Pope since
Since the very beginning.
Since the very beginning. Okay, so who is John Yep? John Yep is the son of a couple of people who seem to own a group of like rehab centers for people who have had catastrophic injuries and need a lot of intensive rehab, which is good, right? They had a whole bunch of kids, including 2 boys who have taken over the company. And John Yep, who was supposed to be a priest, and between and all of his education came from a college and seminaries either directly run by or affiliated with a group called the Legionnaires of Christ. Now, Aldo is nodding his head because he knows exactly who the Legionnaires of Christ are. I don't want to go too much into them because that is a very long and deep and ugly rabbit hole. I will limit myself to saying that they were founded. Okay, if you are familiar with Opus Dei from the Da Vinci Code, or the
horrifying real life.
Yeah, or the horrifying real life.
Okay, because I'm familiar with them mostly from that.
Yeah, okay. So the Legionnaires of Christ are basically a lot like Opus Dei.
Oh, good.
Except they were founded in Mexico. And they were like less with the self-flagellation and, crazed albino assassans. Well, okay.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure the real life Opus Dei doesn't have a lot of albino assassins, but I can't be sure, I suppose.
Yeah. And anyway, they were less into self-flagellation and human trafficking.
Yeah.
In Opus Dei's defense, the lower class girls who were recruited and trafficked were working as maids in a state of effective slavery, but they do not seem to have been sexually abused.
Oh, so it was just regular slavery. It wasn't sexual slavery.
Thank God for small mercies. Thank God for small mercies.
Yeah, exactly. It was regular slavery.
It's like I didn't cut off all your fingers, only the 3. Like, oh, okay, thanks.
Okay. Then there's the Legionnaires of Christ. which are basically what Opus Dei would have been if Opus Dei was founded um, by a morphine addicted, um, completely indiscriminate sexual abuser. As in, he had victims of all ages and sexes,
At least he wasn't
Joy.
sexist, I suppose.
including his own children.
Oh,
Oh,
fun.
Yeah, he
oof.
had at least he had several children there. Initially, when the scandal started to break around the year 2000, it had come out that he had what at that time was being presented as a consensual sexual relationship with a woman that had been involved in a child that had produced a child. It later turned out it was much uglier and more disgusting than that. And whenever I have time, like reconciling the notion of a just and loving God with the doctrine of hell as a place of eternal conscious torment, I remember the fact that God had to have some place to put Masial.
Hmm.
Um, although, did I miss anything?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, um, so that was the organization that and okay, so the Legionnaires of Christ got investigated, got a papal visitation, and were finally in 2019 forced to completely restructure so that they are no longer functioning as a cult run by the priests. And then you have like laymen and laywomen who are like also part of the group, but their lives are being completely controlled by the priest who's in the hierarchy. Now they are a very flat, just kind of lay organization that you join or don't join. And Maciel was very careful to, in many ways, recreate the dynamics that you get in an abusive family, where some people are abused, yes, but there are a lot of people, even in the same family, who legitimately have no idea what's going on. You know, you'll have two kids in the same house, one's abused, the other's not. And of course, abusers do that because that's a way of making it sure that they will be believed. And one of the things that happened when the Legionnaires of Christ went down was that there were basically three reactions. Now you may be asking yourself, why was this organization not just dissolved? The reason for that is because the Legionnaires of Christ, although they were officially a papal ordinariate, so basically something close to a religious order like the Dominicans or the Benedictines, but under the direct control of the Pope, which in practice meant that as long as they were getting along with the Pope, they could get away with a lot. And one of the ways that they did that was by putting all of the assets in like corporations and shell companies that the Catholic Church could not touch. So that meant that the Legionnaires of Christ couldn't get shut down, because if they got shut down, entirely, the Catholic Church was going to be on the hook to pay financial compensation to the victims, and not be able to make the Legionaries of Christ actually use their own money to do that. So the decision was made, we're going to basically take all of your assets, give those assets to the people who have been hurt, and then completely reorganize everything. And the people who have chosen to stay in the organization, their job is basically to fix the problem and be better. And basically, as happens, in the Boy Scouts, in a lot of organizations where there's been an abuse scandal, what happens is there's basically three responses. Either people just leave in disgust, people decide to kick out that once the people who were the problem were removed, that they can figure out a way to restructure the organization so that it is able to function effectively and be a force for good rather than for evil. And then there's the third response, which of course is to just deny that there was a problem, to say, some combination of the victims are lying and this was a setup. And it appears that a certain number of the Legionaries of Christ, and I do not know for certain, but I strongly suspect that John Yep is in this category, are basically taking the position that because the investigation didn't really get rocking and rolling until Pope Francis, it started under Benedict, yes, but didn't really get going until Francis was Pope, that basically this was Pope Francis being the evil enemy of truth and tradition and the gospel and the Latin Mass, and he's getting rid of the legions of Christ, and he's going to be going after like the Dominicans next, right? Like,
yeah, because those are definitely the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like,
talk about delusional.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's completely delusional. It's like it's like when they announced, oh, yeah, it's like when Cardinal Fernandez was like, no, we're not making the title co-redemptrix a thing. People were like, they're going to ban the rosary next. And it's like, no.
A persecution complex is so invaluable to.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So I strongly suspect that John Yep is in that category. And part of the reason why I suspect that is that he is so willing at this moment, when the USCCB, that's the US Conference of Catholic Bishops, is taking very strong stances, and like going out, having protests, accompanying migrants to their immigration hearings, that kind of thing, to the point that a lot of ordinary lay Catholics are kind of starting to go, oh, wait, maybe we need to rethink some of this. He's basically like almost drawing a line in the sand and daring the bishops to come after him and tell him to settle down. And I strongly suspect that part of his hostility to the hierarchy and willingness to work outside of it, and even to have his what he's labeling twice, Catholics for Catholics, as a, so Catholic, we had to have it in the name twice. Organization where he's also taking a really, really strong stand against the USCCB, and also against, like, about, at this point, about, about 40% of American Catholics who are, like, completely against Trump's kidnapping and torture of migrants, and another, like,
most of whom are Catholic, or many of whom at least.
Yeah, many of whom are Catholic. And then there's, like, another 15% of American Catholics who are, like, they're, like, really concerned, and it's not going to take very much to do that. Now, I promised Our Lady of Guadalupe content. So we should have some Our Lady of Guadalupe content, because one of the things that is going on that's super interesting is that the ad that Catholics for Catholics had, their banner ad, had a picture of Our Lady of Guadalupe. That is not the screen I want. Had a nice picture of Our Lady of Guadalupe beaming down.
Who come up with a message from Tom, and then
okay, that is probably the best part about this whole thirsty exercise. Tom Homan could not be bothered to show up. They had to call him on the phone to accept this award.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. The guy behind him is John Yep. Or the guy at the podium is John Yep. And then we have Tom Homan pictured, not present, but pictured in the suit. And then you have Our Lady of Guadalupe kind of staring down with him approvingly. Now, I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a second, because this is the other thing that you have to understand about this really quick. And this may be hard for some of our listeners who don't want to think about people talking to their imaginary friends. Because the Virgin Mary is not imaginary. The Virgin Mary was born approximately in the year 20 BCE. And yes, I am being facetious, but my point here is simply that the thing that you have to understand is that for the people on both sides of this, the Virgin Mary is a person. So what they are doing by deploying this image is not just, wave the flag, George Washington chopping down the cherry tree, we're going to put the flag up, that kind of thing. This is basically an attempt to say, hey, Mom, I did good, right? And which is, and it's important to understand that for the people who are involved in this, this is a very real thing. So if the point is that because of that, if the conflict between the Catholic Church and the Trump administration becomes more pronounced, it's going to put these guys in a really interesting situation because, and I'm going to go back into screen sharing. Well, Tom Homan is being given the Protector of America Award, which I again would like to say, as a believing Catholic, I would not like to have to stand in front of Our Lady of Guadalupe, who showed up in 1531 on a hill in Mexico and said, in Nahua, am I not here, I who am your mother? And explain how I snatched a whole bunch of her children off the street and shoved them in cages. And they might want to think about that too. Because these are some of the images that are being deployed by people on the other side. Right? So here we have Our Lady of Guadalupe slapping an ICE officer while a little girl runs away.
If I may interrupt, Edie, I think it's really interesting the way how each side is making use of the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, because of the they have completely opposite rhetorics, and they try to successfully the Our Lady of Guadalupe doesn't have a dog in the fight in the image by herself, doesn't have a dog in the fight, and yet people freely make use of it. Of course, I would favor this popular expression of art. They use the Catholics for Catholics Association is doing, right? But it really shows that there's actually different. So this shows a reality. Not all Catholics are equal. Not all Catholics are the same, and there's each and every group have their own agenda in the general sense, not in a conspiratorial way or something, right? But they always refer to what is common to the tradition. So in this case, it's the Our Lady of Guadalupe, the one who, as we would say in Mexico, who is paying for the broken dishes.
Yeah, exactly. And and again, here we have another image of Our Lady. This one holding a sword that I quite liked. This one I just had to include. It's a little bit silly, but I just, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So why would the Catholics for Catholics section lean into Our Lady of Guadalupe when there are other more European Madonnas?
I will answer that. I will answer this. I just wanted to quickly show this picture. This is from a anti-ICE protest that was held on the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and this I think will help to answer Amanda's question, right? Where they have where these are just going by their appearances, primarily not Catholics from a Latin American background, but they're deploying the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe in solidarity with the community that has traditionally used Our Lady of Guadalupe. Part of what's going on here is that they're basically different Madonnas, different Our Lady of name the town, name the job, will be associated with various like immigrant communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, say like if you have like a parish with a lot of, with a lot of Czechs, right? You might have like Our Lady of Prague, right? So by like kind of everybody in a parish focusing on the same image, it kind of pulls the community together, right? And because of that, it's an easy way of signaling solidarity with your fellow Catholics of a different ethnic background, right? Mm-hmm. It's a way of foregrounding your Catholic identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's going on with Catholics for Catholics is subtly different, because I think they would argue that what they're saying is they're using it to claim that they are foregrounding their Catholic identity, right? They're saying we're the pro-life ones, we're the pro-Catholic ones, we're not racist. Look, there were all these tens of thousands of little Catholic kids being held in basements under pizza parlors in Washington, D.C., and Tom Homan came and rescued him, and look, Mom, isn't he great? So basically they're trying to use Our Lady of Guadalupe, they're claiming her, right, as a way of indemnifying themselves against charges of racism.
Okay. I mean, I kind of thought that's what it was, but
yeah. That's exactly what's going on. It's like, look, we can't be racist. It's like, look, I can't be racist. I have a strong personal devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe. It's even easier than it's even easier than having a Mexican friend, because at a certain point, all the Mexicans can say, no, I am not friends with this person. Or you have to actually work to maintain that relationship. Whereas you can pray to Our Lady of Guadalupe, and as long as you just kind of shove down that feeling that maybe you might be the bad guy, you can use that as a way to legitimate yourself. So we've had our cast of characters. We have had John Yep, the former seminarian. He spent the period basically like 2002 to 2017, so basically right at the point that the Legionaries of Christ are falling apart. And am I saying that there is a secret organization within the Catholic Church aimed at taking down the hierarchy and replacing it with trad Catholicity? No, I am not, because that would be crazy. What I am saying is that there are a lot of conservative Catholics who are not happy with the way that the church has been going for the past like 15 years, and think that they need to drag it back on track. And if that means picking a fight with the US bishops, that's exactly what they're going to do. And you can also see that in who else was at the at the thing. So you have Tom Homan, who is basically a cop from upstate New York who worked for the Border Patrol for a bunch of years and then got appointed and then got promoted way above his ability by Donald Trump, which, is kind of a pattern. Again, did not bother to show up. But he's he's another one who has said, I think the Pope should just keep his nose out of things and just try to fix the Catholic Church.
Someone who doesn't know much about the history of popes there.
Yeah, exactly. No, honestly, my dream scenario in all of this, and I know that Pope Leo will not do this because he's not the kind of Pope who would do this, but kind of my dream scenario is just to kind of put the U.S. under interdict just to see what happens.
The whole country under interdict? That would be quite a thing.
That would be a thing. For people who don't know what interdict is when the Pope forbids any sacraments beyond burying the dead, anointing the sick, and baptizing babies cannot happen. This includes weddings. This includes the Eucharist.
And I did know that, but mostly because Katie and I know each other from a very nerdy history place. Corner of the internet. Who's that?
Okay. So anyway, so interdict, and then instead of going to Mass and having communion, because that's a sacrament, you have to go there and listen to the priest tell you how you guys need to fix everything so that, your entire area will no longer be beyond the grace of God. The last time interdict was actually used was in the 60s in Louisiana, when there was a parish got assigned a black priest, and they were like, no, we don't want a black priest. And the bishop was like, fine, you can't go to Mass. No Mass in your parish, and they folded after about 6 weeks.
Katie, I wanted to ask your opinion regarding Tom Homan not showing up to this.
Why did he not show up? Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, there's there are a couple of reasons. Mm-hmm. One is that this was an extremely unimportant event, right? Mm-hmm. This is, someone who has had, kind of mid-level jobs in various Republican organizations starting in 2020. Honestly, having someone of his prominence coming to that event is doing John Yep a favor more than it's actually helping him. Also, Tom Homan is currently under investigation for bribery because someone literally handed him a paper bag of money and said, I will give you this paper bag of money if you do this thing that I am asking you to do right now.
You're right. I remember that.
Yeah. And the thing
is, being run by clowns. Oh my God.
Yeah, and the thing is that even under the current definition of bribery, which pretty much allows what they call campaign contributions, to the point that you literally have to hand someone a bag of money and say, if you take this money, and do what I say, I will give you more money, which is what happened. He took a bribe, like by the narrowest possible definition of the word bribe. It was kind of amazing.
That's
So,
unreal. That is so I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
But don't worry, the current administration has assured us that it doesn't legally count as a bribe, and so you should shut up about it.
Okay. Anyway, so
it's a witch hunt.
so
it's a witch hunt where there's an actual witch this time.
Yeah. but the point is that I think that he probably was told by someone, probably his wife, who was the one who actually answered the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, we need to do a reaction video because it's insane, like fully insane.
Sounds mortifying, honestly.
Yeah, but someone, possibly his wife, told him to just kind of stay out of the spotlight. Don't go up on YouTube, saying anything stupid and shooting your mouth off, because, we were talking earlier about how Catholic politics, if you tried to map them onto like the American two-party political divide, are completely schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, part of that is also because, unlike a lot of Protestant churches that have a very firm and very hard leftward boundary and absolutely no rightward boundary, the Catholic Church has both a rightward and a leftward boundary and actually works to maintain that boundary. It's just that until like the last few years, the leftward boundary was getting more attention. Now the traditionalists, the liturgical traditionalists, and the social and political conservatives are getting sassy and not listening to the hierarchy. So now they're getting smacked. And you can also see that in our final person in this. We have one more person. One person who did show up to this award ceremony was General Michael Flynn. In case you didn't surmise from the last name, another cradle Catholic, who was in the Trump administration for, I think, about 20 days as a special advisor, something like that. And was forced to resign also because of massive corruption, right?
It's amazing that they actually got someone to resign as a result of corruption, because I feel like just a year later or so, that's just unthinkable. No one even thinks about resigning from corruption anymore.
Yeah. Well, Flynn, it was like the first month of the Trump administration, right? When it was the first month of the first Trump administration, and back in 2016, they thought that if they gave the left a couple of, unimportant heads, that everybody would kind of, forget about everything and just let them do everything that they're doing this year. And Michael Flynn kind of fell victim to that.
Oh no.
Oh no, consequences for his actions.
Something the Trump administration is not used to.
Yeah, such a horrible thing. So so basically that was why, and since then he's been kind of trying to crawl his way back into prominence, but he's a little bit too weird for, like, even like the really right-wing news programs, which in the US often get referred to as wingnut welfare, because it's like you do something completely totally unhinged, you get canceled, and then you move on to a lucrative career as a TV commentator.
Yeah, based on how it seems to go, I wish I would get canceled by the left.
Yeah.
Someone,
Jeez.
please cancel me.
Yeah, I know. Like I or like the white women who, like, they call a kid a racial slur and then they like raise $50,000.
Yep.
It's like I almost want to find, like not that I would ever do that to a child, but I almost want to find a family and just be like, okay, do you want to split the money?
I mean, you could probably just not even have a child and just be like, well, I didn't want to put the child in frame. And then just film yourself using slurs against a hypothetical child who's not actually there. And then just add in some child sound effects in post. And you might actually be able to get canceled and get some money out of that. And, like, when it comes to scamming right-wingers, I don't think it's possible, because in order to scam someone, there has to be a person on the other end of the scam, and they don't count.
Yeah, that's true. But then I would feel bad about myself.
Why? You're going to do far better things with that money than anyone that you're taking it from.
Yeah, I know, but I also don't want to have people associate me with hate speech.
Okay, that's a good reason.
So, there is that.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, we've got Michael Flynn, who is probably willing to take to the stage anytime somebody's willing to set up a microphone and invite him. And another person who, and then the final person who was supposed to just do the invocation and ended up giving like a 20-minute rant on just all kinds of stuff and was like truly, truly, truly unhinged, was Bishop Strickland. The former bishop of Tyler, Texas, who got, who was.
Yes, the one who all the Tradcats think might have been the only real pope in the last few decades.
Actually, no.
Oh no.
No, no. You would think that. You might think that, and there
Is
actually,
Benedict too woke?
and there actually is a like particular subset of Sedivacantists called Benivacantists.
Oh goodness.
Who hold that either Pope Francis, who they refer to as Bergoglio.
Of course, because they don't think he was actually a pope. That makes sense.
Yeah, because it's like, no, you don't call the Pope by their last name.
Yeah.
Or their old name in general.
Yeah, or their full name in general. It's like, no, you call them by their regnal name and their number if you need to use the number to distinguish them from whoever, right?
Which you don't in the case of Francis.
Exactly, because there's only been one. With Leo, there's been 14, so you sometimes have to specify. Particularly since he chose his regnal name partially as a tribute to Leo the 13th, and occasionally name checks him, although not as long as he name checks St. Augustine, who I'm pretty sure if you exhaustively searched his public statements. He name checks in a public statement at least once a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like seriously, like everyone, every dead author should have someone who is as obsessed with them as Pope Leo is with St. Augustine. He even has a little piece of Augustine that he wears around his neck sometimes.
Weird Catholic stuff.
Oh no, the Protestant doesn't like relics.
No, they really did. There was a monastery in Rome that had a relic of Saint Monica and a relic of Saint Augustine, and they had them installed in a special cross that he wears sometimes.
A little macabre, but okay.
Yes, welcome to relics.
Yes.
They're all macabre. That's kind of part of the point.
Yes.
This is why Catholics and Goths are like.
This is true.
Yes,
This is true.
So anyway, and I wanted to get the exact quote from Bishop Strickland. So he was appointed bishop in 2012. He got removed in 2023.
That didn't last long.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, the man was born in 1958, so he is not yet 70.
Okay.
Catholic bishops, under the new, it used to be that bishop appointments were for life. Under the new norms, when a bishop turns 75, they submit their resignation to the Pope, and then the Pope gets to decide when they resign.
Okay.
Because, obviously, as we know, you can have situations where you have, a fairly elderly person who's not quite up to the job, but there's not really a good mechanism for removing them. This kind of is supposed to smooth all of that over, basically, to where you just say, okay, retire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Strickland was actually forced to retire, and they had to threaten him with both excommunication, which is being kicked out of the Catholic Church, and laicization, which means that his status as a priest would be removed. Which, if you're a man who has only ever been, if you're a retiree who's only ever been a Catholic priest, getting laicized and losing your pension is not an inconsiderable thing. So Strickland basically decided to step down. This was after, in July of 2022, where he reposted a Twitter video where, among other things, Francis was called, and I quote, a diabolically disoriented clown. And after he was forced to resign, he said that it happened because I threatened some of the powers that be with the powers of the gospel.
Which part of the gospel was where Jesus said, "And remember to mistreat the stranger in your midst"? Was that?
Yeah.
Which part was that?
I think that was in I think that was in Ephesians 25.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been a while since I've read Ephesians 25, to be fair.
So anyway, yeah. As a side note, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle in the news about Bishop Strickland offering a mass at Mar-a-Lago. The reason for that is because the reason why the mass was offered at Mar-a-Lago and not at a Catholic church is because, fun fact, the Bishop of Palm Beach said that he is not allowed to set foot in a Catholic church in the Diocese of Palm Beach.
Good take.
Not
Wow.
that,
So, don't you need a consecrated altar or something?
there are normally, yes, but there are ways of getting around that. Like you can have a like travel altar.
Okay, yeah, I forgot about that.
That's like approved and set up.
I did forget about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because like for example,
Chaplains.
Yep, chaplains.
yeah. Well, like for example, a few months ago, Cardinal Supich celebrated Mass in the White Sox Stadium in Chicago. And they had a special travel altar that was brought in for that. So that is something that can be done. However, choosing to hold a mass at a private home because you're not allowed to hold masses, or indeed attend mass in a particular diocese is kind of an underhanded thing, as was another time where he where Strickland presided over a mass in Palm Beach, where he actually went to a Maronite Catholic church because
They have a different bishop.
Yeah, they have a different bishop. So the Maronite, so all of the Maronite Catholics in the U.S. answer to the same guy, or they have a different chain of command, basically. So it's the same way, essentially, as like Marines on a Navy ship. So I assume I'm not messing that up totally badly.
I don't know enough about Marianites to know.
So Marianites are an Eastern Catholic group,
Yeah.
and so if you were to go to a mass at a Maronite church, it would probably be more like going to the Divine Liturgy at an Orthodox church than it would be like going to mass at a Roman Catholic church. But doctrinally, they have the same doctrines as the Roman Catholics, and they recognize the Pope as the head of their church. But in places where there is a Maronite diaspora, like the United States, they tend to have a Maronite bishop who is, in a somewhat irregular fashion, maintaining that bishopric over the area that is also covered by other Catholic bishops. But that's primarily because they want to be able to have a bishop within the same liturgical tradition as them to do things like ordinations and things like that. I believe they're pretty common in Lebanon. I think that's the largest place for them.
Yeah, the Maronite.
We have one where I live.
Yeah.
Literally, like 10 blocks.
The Maronites are mostly they aren't exclusively in Lebanon, but the movement started in what's now Lebanon. And also, fun fact, Maronites have not always, but they can have married clergy. They do not allow priests to be ordained if they are already married. I think
you're getting it backwards.
I was saying it backwards. They allow married men to be ordained. However, priests are not allowed to marry.
No.
So if a Maronite priest has a wife and the wife dies, then that's it.
Unless he stops being a priest, which does happen.
Unless he stops being a priest. But if he wants to continue, but at that point, he would be in the same position as any other Catholic priest who wanted to marry.
There have also been some married Anglican priests who were accepted into the Roman Rite as married priests, but they're not allowed to become parish priests. They have to do various diocesan duties where they will occasionally say Mass, but like that's not your parish priest. And there's also the Anglican apostolate or something like that, where that's pretty typical, actually, even for parish priests.
Yeah. Well, actually, technically, those priests are kind of like they're still part of the Anglican apostolate.
Yeah, but still, they're married Western Rite Catholic priests.
Yes, this is true. And there are married Eastern Rite Catholic priests. In fact, my town has a Marianite church where the priest is married, and was in fact the first married man to be ordained in the U.S. like ever.
I once had a Catholic roommate who tried to fight me on whether or not there were married Catholic priests, and also tried to fight me on the idea that St. Peter was married, even though Jesus heals his mother-in-law, and it's hard to get a mother-in-law unless you're married.
Yeah. Well, on the other hand, there is a certain amount of biblical literacy in the Catholic community, which is part of the reason why Nerd Church exists.
Happy to do a little tiny bit to help out there, Catholics.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so that's who Strickland is. I should note that in spite of the fact that he said stuff in public about his boss, that if any one of us were ever to say it in public about our bosses, would pretty much get us fired for saying that about his boss, his or their boss. The actual reason why Strickland was forced to resign was because they found out that there was gross financial mismanagement. Like, not actual, like nobody was actually stealing money, but it was like so badly mismanaged that it would have almost been better if somebody was stealing money, because then they could have at least gotten the money back.
You'd have punished somebody, but it's just.
But this was just gross financial mismanagement. So basically, he was allowed to resign, and since then has been kind of floating around in
being a pain.
Yeah, being a pain, trying to stir up conspiracy theories. And the thing is that it's notable, and I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight this, how, yes, there is this fight going on in the Catholic Church, right? But it would be a mistake to think that the two sides are in any way like equivalent in their access to institutional support, or that one side or the other has a greater claim to legitimacy as Catholics in terms of identity, and that one side or the other isn't taking their Catholic identity seriously. And also, not only, so we've got institutional support and an increasing split in the Catholic community. And generally in the Catholic Church, when one side has the support of the bishops and the church hierarchy, that tends historically to be the side that wins. So at that point, we'll just have to kind of see what happens next, because so far there hasn't been a whole bunch of response by the USCCB to this event, so it's entirely possible that they've decided to not take the bait. However, as things continue to unfold, I think it's entirely possible that we're going to come to the point where a lot of extremely right-wing Catholics like John Yep are going to have to decide which master they're going to serve. Are they going to foreground, are they going to foreground their Catholic identity and reject the fascist abuses of the Trump regime? Or are they going to continue using Our Lady of Guadalupe as their little sock puppet? And as they do that, they might want to consider that they might have to answer for that. And they might have to answer for that now, or they might have to answer for that later on. And do you want to tell Jesus's mom? Do you want to tell Jesus why you made his mom sad? No, you do not want to do that. That would be bad. That would be very bad. John Yep, if you're listening, I highly recommend that you, pray a full 4 decades of the Rosary as an act of reparation for this blasphemy against the good name of the Blessed Virgin and Our Lady of Guadalupe.
I recommend self-flagellation, actually, in this particular case. Not generally, but in this case specifically.
Yes, that would be good too.
I can help with the whip design, buddy.
Actually, Aldo could help with the whip design.
There we go.
Yeah, he actually makes whips as a hobby.
Nice.
And for my fellow Catholics who are on the side of promoting the least vulnerable among us, I would ask you to consider including Our Lady of Guadalupe in your devotions, both because she's really super awesome and as a way of being visibly in solidarity with your fellow Catholics who are kind of going through it right now.
Yeah.
And on that note, I don't have anything else to say. So does anybody else have questions?
I do not.
Okay, then I will stop the recording. I will stop the recording.